We're going to have some of the other coaches up here. Again, this is Eva with HealthCheck360. I'm one of the health coaches, and I'm joined with some of the other coaches that aren't regularly on these webinars. But we wanted to join together to give you our favorite tips. So what we're going to do today is just take a turn for each of the coaches to give you just their favorite tip. Out of all their health tips that they give to participants, this is the one that they think makes the biggest difference in helping you achieve your goals. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to hand it over to Ashley.
Okay, thanks, Eva. Well, to start off, my tip for you all is to eat breakfast. So I hope that most of you have already done that today. Breakfast is very important. It's going to help jumpstart your metabolism and get everything going for the day. Just like you wouldn't drive your car without filling it up with gas, same thing for your body. You want to try to have that breakfast each morning to give you the energy you need to get through your day. Many people find that if they have breakfast in the morning and it's a healthy breakfast, it helps to set the tone for the rest of the day for them, and they may find that they choose healthier options than throughout the day. Breakfast, again, when you talk about metabolism, is going to be very beneficial to weight control and helping to control your blood sugar. In your breakfast, if you currently are not eating breakfast, I would recommend just to try and eat breakfast to start. From there, focusing on the types of foods that you're incorporating, specifically a form of a lean protein is going to be good to incorporate with your breakfast. Some examples would include eggs, whether it's scrambled eggs, hard-boiled eggs, peanut butter, fat-free cottage cheese, and Greek yogurt. Plain Greek yogurt is very good with some added fruit in there. Many people will say that breakfast is hard for them because they're up in the morning, they have a lot of things to do, get ready, they just don't have time for it. I would agree. I like to get as much sleep in as I can in the morning, and so I have this great recipe here which helps. You can prepare it in advance. I usually do it on Sundays, and what they are is they're egg muffins. So you have the recipe today. You'll be able to view that later on. Basically, I make these on Sunday, and I'll have about 12 egg muffins for the week. So I can have 2 each day, and I just prepare them in advance and then heat them up when I get to work. And it includes some great protein in there. So you have the eggs. You can use egg whites, any type of ham, turkey, low-fat cheese, and then basically unlimited to the types of vegetables you want to add in there. So it's a great way to have a good, healthy breakfast. It's also a warm breakfast, too, and it's something that can be prepared in advance for those who are on a time crunch.
Thanks, Ashley. Now we're going to hear from our other Ashley on the coaching team.
Thanks, Eva. My tip is actually 2 tips in one. One of the things I think is most important is to use a food diary and also utilize portion control. Starting with food diary, why is it important? It keeps you accountable for everything that you eat, because throughout the day, if you eat great snacks throughout the day, you'll eat more than you remember. It makes you aware of what you're eating, and you can't really hide a Reese's peanut butter cup if you eat 5 of them if you have to track them. And just some facts for knowledge here. If you consume 100 calories each day more than you require, you can gain about 10 pounds per year. And if you do that every year, 5 years down the road, you're 50 pounds heavier. If you consume 500 calories less a day, it can lead to a 1 pound weight loss each week. A 2008 study comments that if you track your calories a minimum of 6 days per week, you can double your weight loss compared to someone who doesn't track their calories at all. So studies show that it's really important. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be just pen and paper. If you carry Post-it notes with you and a pen or a pencil. If you want to get a little bit more technical, you can use an online website like our myhealthcheck360.com. If you use an online website, it'll be a little bit more detailed. It'll tell you how many calories are the things that you're eating. It'll tell you protein. It'll tell you fat content. It'll be a little bit more detailed to help you further your portion control and food diary. The reason portion control is so important is a lot of people can eat, what you want, but our portions are so out of control, you're getting double the size, if not triple the size, of what's recommended. The ideal portion size for red meat is 3 ounces. I haven't been to a restaurant in a very long time with any size of steak less than 6 ounces, and that's even hard to find. So if you're a red meat lover but you're trying to watch, your cholesterol, maybe if you utilize the 3-ounce portion control, you might be able to have a steak more often than you think. So when you're at home, some things to remember is you want to eat from a bowl or a plate. Don't have the bag, don't have the box. Something that I do is when I get home from the grocery store, I will portion control all of my snacks out for the rest of the week. So that way I know that when I grab almonds, there's already 18 almonds in my bag, and I take that with me. And I don't have to worry about stocking if I'm mindlessly snacking. Or if I want to have Oreos, I can portion those 3 Oreos out ahead of time so I can just grab and go, and I won't accidentally eat 6 or 10 or the whole box for the matter. When you take your time and utilize those portions, you feel full, and maybe you won't want that second helping, because right now you typically eat really quickly, and then you're having double the portions because you're still hungry. So if you take your time, you'll be able to utilize that portion control a lot easier. You want to pay attention to your labels as well, because what it says in the box, or a soda that you get from the gas station, it's actually probably 2 servings in there, but we drink that in 1 sitting. So you're getting double the calories, double the sugar, double the sodium, and double everything else. So make sure you read your labels and pay attention to what the serving size, and then also pay attention to portion control. When you're eating out, try to split an entree with somebody, because restaurants' portions are typically 2 to 3 times larger than what is recommended. You save money, you'll save calories, or if you order from a kids menu, you'll again save money, save calories. If you pack half your meal before you go, you will have lunch for tomorrow, which is even better. And if you don't have measuring cups, spoons, or a kitchen scale, this is just a quick guide taken from WebMD, where you can kind of compare your food items to these household items to get the correct size. Notice that 1 slice of bread, typically recommended by the health professionals, is the size of a cassette tape. I haven't seen something that size, so something to be very aware of. An ideal portion size is also only 1 slice of bread, so that's something to keep in mind as well. So if you look on this page and the next page, there's just a couple other comparisons. For lunch meat compact disc, red meat or chicken you'll see is 3 ounces like we've already mentioned. So if you don't have a scale, you can check this out and just to kind of compare things at home. And you can see this on our blog. You can also go to WebMD and find the same thing.
Okay, now we're going to hear from one of our other coaches, Shelby. Thank you, Eva. My tip today is to use what you have when it comes to exercise. And the most convenient piece of exercise equipment you own is your body. You don't need to have fancy equipment or a gym membership to get a great workout. There are really endless workout options that don't require any equipment other than maybe a comfy pair of shoes and a little bit of space. Some of the more common exercises I'm sure you've all heard of: sit-ups, push-ups, squats, lunges, planks, things along those lines. Some people think that because these exercises are so simple, they don't work, but they absolutely do. You can start with 10 or even 5 of these exercises and work your way up, finding exercises that target each body part. I have a couple websites here. ACE and WebMD are just a couple places you can go for examples of some great exercises and workouts. How about a cardio workout? Running and walking are obvious when you think of no equipment workouts, but if you're bored or if you don't like to do either of those things, there are plenty of other options. Jumping jacks, jump lunges, mountain climbers, burpees, a personal favorite of mine. I'm sure the other coaches would agree with me, maybe not. If you aren't sure what those are, look them up online or shoot me an email, and I would love to chat about anything. Another option for a cardio workout is using stairs. Do you park at a ramp for work like I do? Do you have stairs in your house? Well, use them. Start with walking up a few times, and you can graduate to taking 2 steps at a time. Then you can start running. You could even add a couple push-ups or sit-ups at the top of the stairs before you go back down. Short and steep hills around your house or your job will also accomplish that same workout. If you're looking for a more intense workout, something to try is called high-intensity interval training. Basically, all this is periods of high-intensity exercise followed by medium or lower intensity periods for recovery. The most common form of this is with running, but you can really use anything that gets that heart rate up. For example, do a 5-minute warm-up with a brisk walk or jog. Then you can do 5 30-second runs or sprints,
and then a minute of jogging in between to kind of recover. And then obviously a cool down after you're done. You can start with 5 or 10 seconds of that high intensity and work your way up from there. You start where you're at and then build up. Another form of that high intensity interval training is something called a Tabata or Tabata. People kind of say it different ways, however you've heard it. This is a great workout in a short amount of time, which should appeal to almost everyone as we are all very busy and may not have time to spare to exercise. So basically what you do is you just pick 4 exercises. The example here I've chosen burpees, push-ups, bicycle crunches, and jump lunges. What you do is you find a clock, a watch, or actually there's awesome apps on your smartphone that are designed specifically for this type of workout. Do a warm up those muscles first, then you do each of these exercises as hard as you can for 20 seconds, then you take 10 seconds of rest. Then you go on to the next exercises and you go cycle through the exercises until you've done every one 8 times. Basically that's 16 minutes of exercise and you're good to go. You can arrange exercises in the order you want. You can do upper body, then lower body, kind of just do it how you feel. Always talk to your doctor before beginning exercise programs, obviously, and make sure you listen to your body as you should with any exercise. Take a break when you need to and do what you can, building up gradually. This is an example, so you don't have to do that 20 seconds. Right away, do as much as you can, get that heart pumping, and then go from there. So that's my tip. Use what you have. There's no excuse when it comes to exercise because you have all the equipment you need.
Thanks, Debbie. All right, so if you have had me as a coach or if you've listened on some of our past webinars, you already know that I'm pretty hard on processed carbohydrates. So you're probably not surprised that this is my favorite #1 tip for better health, is just simply to get rid of them altogether. So I know this can seem drastic, and for most Americans it is, but in my opinion it's a change that is so worth it when it comes to managing your health with your nutrition. And once you get the hang of it, I honestly do believe it's one of the simplest ways to go about it. So the problem with refined carbohydrates, well actually there's a whole host of problems. Firstly, they're everywhere, which makes it easy to access and then later to overeat these things. Your body runs through these fast-burning carbs like pastas, breads, rice, and other snack foods pretty quickly, and then it's going to leave you hungry a lot sooner than protein or even healthier fats would. So it's tough to practice the portion control that Ashley talked about earlier without feeling deprived later on. So knowing just these simple things, it's easy to see why weight management is a lot tougher when you include processed carbohydrates. Another problem with the overabundance of these foods is the increased risk for type 2 diabetes. When you constantly overload your body with starchy carbohydrates, your body's insulin resistance decreases, which is a bad thing, and basically your body doesn't know what to do with all the excess sugar. So this leads to problems with your pancreas and eventually a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. So by cutting down on these, or like I think you should, eliminating them completely, you'll have a much better chance of preventing type 2 diabetes. You also minimize your risk for high triglycerides, and those are just a part of your body's total cholesterol that typically come from an overabundance of those starches. And so if you avoid them, you're going to decrease your risk. And then this last one was something that I read really recently, just as I was kind of preparing for this webinar, and it caught me off guard. It was about how refined carbohydrates can actually start to impact your mental health and well-being. So there has finally been a connection found between a diet based largely in simple carbohydrates and an increased risk of mental illness. And some doctors are even going so far as to call it type 3 diabetes. So much like your body becomes resistant to insulin, your brain can too. And more research is going to be done, but this is just one more reason and one more slight hint at why you need to clean up your diet and get rid of those carbs. So instead, what I want you to do is focus on whole foods. And so I know if you've been on our webinars, our next few webinars are going to be based around whole foods and the benefits. But at the very least, know that eating whole foods is going to be way more beneficial to your health. So while I do agree that starchy, grain-based carbohydrates can fit into a healthy diet, I think it takes a lot more work for you portioning, using the portion control that Ashley talked about, measuring, tracking, things like that. But when you focus on your lean proteins like your meats, eggs, or even beans, healthy nature-based fats like avocados and nuts, it's a lot easier to maintain your weight to improve your cholesterol, keep your glucose in check. You have better sleep, more consistent energy, better digestion, better skin. There's so many benefits to these whole foods. So if you want to make it simple, reduce your refined carbohydrates and stick to these things. Eat a lot of the vegetables, a lot of the lean proteins. Incorporate fruit. The lower sugar options are going to be better for you, obviously. Berries, apples, citrus is really good. And then just get rid of the carbohydrates, the breads, pastas, rice, potatoes, pretzels, snack foods, cookies, candies, cakes, donuts. Anything with flour, but there are also other things, so just be aware. But these are just some of the more typical ones. Now I'm going to pass it over to Trit.
Thank you, Viva. My favorite topic really revolves around mindfulness, but for the purpose of this presentation, it is stress and sleep. And as I love to talk about both so much, Eva allowed me to actually have 2 tips. So we're going to start off with stress. But the reason I guess I like to talk about this is that we've covered 4 other great tips: eating breakfast, tracking food, using your body to be physically active, and cutting sugar. But for me, it all really starts with that mindfulness. And if you are under high stress or if you are sleep deprived, it's harder to be aware of where exactly you stand in those categories, or it's harder to make that decision. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. There's some hormones that are actually acting against you. So with stress, typically the way you respond to stress is a learned behavior, typically from family, friends, coworkers. You just kind of pick up how it is that they respond to stress, and that's just typically how you begin to also respond. So with stress and with sleep deprivation, it can really cast a shadow over all of your really good efforts. So I usually come across this subject with participants when they're telling me that they're exercising on a regular basis, they're eating a fairly healthy diet, you know, they're doing all the wellness things that we say you should be doing, but they're just not seeing the health benefits from those. And that's usually where I start to go into the conversation of, well, what's the stress like in your life, or how is your sleep? And usually I find out that it's high stress or they're lacking sleep. So first step here is the key is to acknowledge how you react to stress. And here's why it's important. So there are some hormones that are acting against you that you really don't have you can control these, but your body has these in play and for a very important reason, and we'll go over that. So stress hormones you need to know about. There's other ones on the list, but these are the 2 big ones. Adrenaline, everybody's probably familiar with this, and this really revolves around the fight or flight response. And what's important to know about if you are reacting to stress in a negative situation or a negative way and your adrenaline starts to pump, what's really happening is your blood pressure is rising and your heart rate is rising. So if this happens once, that's no big deal. But if this happens day in and day out over a long period of time, so your blood pressure is elevated and your heart rate is elevated for a long period of time, you can begin to understand how this can cause some problems to your health. The next one is cortisol. So cortisol is something your body releases automatically when you are feeling stressed. And a couple things that cortisol does: it increases the amount of glucose in your bloodstream, and it slows the functions not essential in an emergency. So what that means is if there's a life-threatening emergency, your body really doesn't care about digesting that last meal you just had, so it's going to take all of that blood that's flowing to your gut, and it's going to pump it to your muscles so that you can run away from whatever's happening, or it's going to help to increase your heart rate. So slows functions not essential to emergency, so digestive system, immune system, and reproductive system. So you can see why if you are, again, if you're under high stress on a regular basis, day in and day out over a long period of time, and your digestive system isn't working very well or your immune system isn't working very well, you can see some longer-lasting health risk factors that go along with that. So what's really interesting about this is that our body is capable of doing great things to keep us safe and healthy. And you'll hear often that these stem from caveman days. You'll hear that a lot, that this is hardwired into us, the way that our body responds to these hormones. And that's true. So what's important is then how you react to stress. So again, if you're under chronic stress, so your blood pressure is elevated, your heart rate is elevated, and your body is releasing sugar to help you, as mentioned from the hormones from adrenaline and from cortisol, these are some of the long-term chronic stress diseases that can be developed. So heart disease, sleep disorders, poor digestion, depression, obesity, memory impairment, and even some skin diseases like eczema. So when you're looking at this list, just kind of think to yourself, does anything on this list affect me? How's my digestive health? Do I have high blood pressure? And think about some of those things, and then think about the stress levels that's in your life. So then, we talk about the importance of stress, what it is, what it's doing to your body, some of the effects it can have on your health. And so the next question really is, okay, so I have high stress. I understand that. I understand that it's not good for my body. So now what do I do about it? And this is where people generally have a hard time. Where I usually start with people is to say, the goal is not to eliminate stress or stressors. That can't be done. Stressors are going to come at you every single day. Rather, you need to change the way you react or perceive stress. So my boss can come at me and start, giving me orders or say I did something wrong, and I'm not going to be able to change that. Well, I could do a better job next time, I guess, to not have that happen. But there's going to be things that come at you every single day that you can't control. These stressors are going to keep coming at you. What you can control is how you respond to those stressors. Again, that's easier said than done, and it takes practice to respond in a healthier way. So some things to look at in your daily life. You can work hard to meet deadlines while staying relaxed. And so all too often I see coworkers that, they're stressing over meeting deadlines or putting reports together or different things like that, and they really want to do a good job and they want to get everything done on time. And while they're doing that, their blood pressure is raising, their heart rate is elevated, their jaws, the muscles in their jaw and their shoulders and their hips are really tight, and so they're giving themselves some extra symptoms that they don't need. And so what I mean by this point is that you can work hard while being relaxed. You can get just about as much done without having your jaw clenched tight, So basically saying just relax your body and keep working. Having a sense of humor as things pop up, learn, what things can I just kind of brush off or laugh at or, not take to heart. Put things in proper perspective. My favorite example with this is today's Wednesday, and so usually on Monday there's a lot of flyers that you have to put out. As I talk to people in their different positions, I hear a lot of, my job revolves around having to put out flyers. So what I like to do is say, okay, so on Monday, do you remember what those flyers even were? Or last week, do you remember those flyers that were, during that day, they were very, very important, but can you tell me what they were now? And so what that really means was it really that important? So again, that's prioritizing and knowing what's important and what's not. Organize your work week and schedule it. So again, we had some great tips about eating breakfast and exercising. So those are things that put those into your schedule. And you'll see the next bullet point, improve your nutrition and get regular exercise. Put those things into your schedule because those things are going to help set you up to manage your stress in a better way. Practice with the goal of experiencing relaxation. So people will come and they'll want to do yoga or meditation exercises, and they'll have the idea that I need to do these in order to eliminate stress. But again, the idea is not to eliminate all the stresses in your life. They're going to come at you. The idea is to learn how it feels to be stress-free. So if I do a regular yoga practice, I'm trying to teach myself. And have the experience of what it's like to feel at ease. What that's going to do if I do this on a regular basis is those times that I don't feel at ease, it'll be much more clear to me, and I'll know that I can just take a couple deep breaths, or I can do something while sitting in my chair. Nobody has to know what I'm doing, but I'm really just trying to calm myself down. So the awareness is really the most important part. What this really does, it puts you in control of your life, puts you in control of your health, puts you in control of choices, your energy, and even your mood. So the next one, which really isn't too far off from the stress topic, is sleep. So again, there's sleep hormones that are released in your body that you should know about. So sleep hormones include cortisol. So cortisol is a hormone that is released by your body when it's time to wake up. It's your body's sort of natural alarm clock. Insulin regulates the amount of sugar in your bloodstream. Leptin tells your brain you are full, and ghrelin tells your brain that you are hungry. So your sleep affects all of these hormones. So chronic sleep deprivation suppresses the hormones that tell you you are full. So if you miss or if you don't get 8 hours of sleep, let's say you go a couple days with only getting a couple hours of sleep, there's this hormone in your body that is suppressed, and that hormone is the one that tells you you're full. So what that means is that you're going to experience the feeling of hunger more than you actually need to. The next one is increases hormones that tell you that you are hungry. So again, you're sleep deprived. The hormone that tells you you are full is suppressed, so that's not acting correctly. There's a hormone in your body that tells you you are hungry, and that one's being amped up. So you can see the problem that's associated with that, with chronic sleep deprivation. So let's put this into perspective. Many people have had to get up early to catch a plane. You know, you have to get up at 4 a.m. to get to the airport early, or whatever the case may be, or maybe you pull an all-nighter working on a presentation or a report for a meeting or what have you. Think about how you felt the next day. First off, you probably weren't thinking very clearly, but also you're tired, and oftentimes resort to sugar or high caffeine or high caloric foods for that energy boost. And really your body needs it. You know, if you need to stay awake that day, you've got to give yourself some sort of fuel to keep going. You didn't allow your body the full rest it needs, so you have to compensate for that with high energy foods. So calories equal energy. In this case, it's going to also equal an excess of calories. And as Shelby mentioned, those excess calories, Ashley mentioned, those excess calories equals weight gain. Another thing that happens, though, is that you're just exhausted. So you work through the night, you work the entire next day, and then that afternoon, when you get off work, how likely is it that you're going to go to the gym? Or how likely is it to be that you're going to go home and cook a healthy meal? Most often in most cases, people are going to go home and crash on the couch or order a pizza or grab fast food, just something super easy and convenient, just because they're exhausted. And it makes sense. I understand why that is. But what's important here is to back up and to understand what happened to your body. So getting that full night of sleep is very important for those reasons. So studies link chronic sleep deprivation to obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. And going back and looking at those hormones that we just talked about, the ones that is suppressed, the one that tells you that you're full that is suppressed, and the one that is amped up that tells you that you need to eat more. So really that means you're going to be eating more, or you're likely going to be eating more the next day and eating a bunch of extra calories. So if you're doing that again, if you're doing that day in and day out, or if you're doing that 2 or 3 times a week on a regular basis, then you can kind of see where those extra calories that are consumed can lead to weight gain, which can lead to obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. But also, just some of the extra things, the extra stress that is put on your body that increases your heart rate, increases your blood pressure over a longer period of time, and some of the extra, the foods that you're putting in your body. So if you're living off of caffeine, you can see how that can have a problem with your heart health.
All right, so these are just, quick 1-second ways to interpret all the tips that we just went over. I want to thank all the coaches for helping out with this. It was kind of a step out of their norm, and so I really appreciate their help. We have a few minutes. We can open it up for question and answer. I know some people have to go because we're going to run out of time, but if you do have some questions, we'll stick around for that. As always, we want your feedback. We want to know what you liked, what you didn't, what you'd like to hear more of. We're still working to finalize the 2014 schedule. So if you have topics that you'd like to hear about, please email us at healthcoach@healthcheck360.com. You can follow us on Twitter. You can also check out our blog, healthcheck360blog.com, where this webinar and all of our past webinars are there to be viewed in the recording. So like I said, we'd love to hear from you. Check us out. We're going to open it up for questions and answers now. So we have a question about the slides being available. We aren't going to send out the slides, but you will be able to view the full recording of the webinar on the blog, healthcheck360blog.com, where you will also be able to find that egg muffin recipe. You can pause it. You'll be able to have it in video. We can also put that in just text under the video as well in the blog.
Okay, we had a question about potatoes, and they're not a processed foods, but they are one of the foods that I am pretty adamant about people getting rid of. They do have some benefits. The potato skins do have some nutrients, and the potato itself does have some nutrients. The thing is that your body's blood sugar will be spiked when you eat simple carbohydrates alone like that. So it's important to combine them with proteins if you can, or healthy fats.
Eva, I was just going to add in on that with potatoes. It's, it really comes down to what are your goals. So if you have goals of, if you're somebody that's really adamant about trying to lose weight and they're really trying to take a hard approach about it, that would be something we definitely would talk about. So it's an important thing to discuss with your coach and know what your goals are and discuss potatoes with your coach. But as Eva mentioned, it does spike your blood sugar. So again, depending on what your goals are, that could be a bad thing.
Okay, and we have a question about Greek yogurt versus other yogurts. Greek yogurt is lower in sugar, which is going to help you avoid that blood sugar spike. It's higher in protein, which is really, really helpful and beneficial for your metabolism. We have a question about Activia Greek yogurt. I would be hesitant to recommend that. Just I haven't checked out the ingredients on that lately, but there are some pretty popular yogurt brands that are using the Greek yogurt label that aren't actually using live and active cultures. So one brand that's really great is Chobani. Fage, F-A-G-E, that's another brand that's good. I would compare those labels to some of the more mainstream brands and see what the difference is, because some of the other ones do have that extra added sugar that some of the other true Greek yogurts aren't going to have.
There's a question about some healthy fats, so coconut oil versus butter versus other imitation fats, which is a great question, a topic I really like to talk about. Healthy fat is important to have in your diet, so most recommendations are 20 to 30%. Again, it depends on your goals of your calories should come from fat, and we want those fats to be healthy choices. Coconut oil is a healthy choice. It's a good oil to cook with. Some other oils aren't as stable, and so what that means is when you heat them up, they can break down. So it's important to look at. So even some olive oils, if you're cooking at a higher temperature, can actually break it down and turn what is considered to be a healthy fat into an unhealthy fat. So olive oil, most of them aren't meant to be cooked at really high temperature. A medium heat or using it at room temperature is great for olive oil. Coconut oil is one that can, it's a little more stable, so it's good for cooking. Coconut oil is a little bit bizarre. It's not one that you would just toss onto a salad or something like that, like you would with olive oil, because coconut oil at room temperature can either be a solid or a liquid. So if you have it stored in your cupboard, or let's say you have it next to your oven, and just a small amount of heat can turn coconut oil into a liquid, whereas if you put coconut oil in the refrigerator, it'll turn it into a solid. So if you go ahead and toss some of that on your salad, you might be shocked to see that all of a sudden you have these white flaky things on your salad, which is just the solid form of coconut oil. Butter was another one on that list. My recommendation is always to eat real food versus fake food. So if something is sort of man-made or heavily processed, I steer away from it. Butter is not. Well, technically it is, but we know it comes from dairy. So again, I don't think you have to totally eliminate it, but know your goal. So if you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or you're overweight, or you're working on weight loss, any of those things, just be careful with how much you use. Again, a fat is a fat. We do need some, but too much can be a bad thing.
So coconut oil and butter in their most natural state are a good addition to your diet in limited amounts, to sum that up. The other thing we have a question about is almond flour versus other flours. And there are other flours. You're going to find almond flour, peanut flour, coconut flour. I was specifically talking about flour from wheat. Almond flour is made from almonds. So that's going to be, it's not going to spike your blood sugar the way flour typically does. Almond flour I would be on board with and would consider that a nice healthy alternative for your cooking options. We're going to wrap it up though, but if you do have more questions that we didn't get a chance to answer, we have one more about burpees. You can either look them up online. If you Google it, you're going to be able to find hundreds of videos, or you can email Shelby K at HealthCheck360.com. They are her favorite exercise, and she would love to talk to you about them. So we are going to wrap it up. If you have questions, email us, give us some feedback on the webinar